Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.
Hello and welcome to Engage for Success Radio and show number 581 in our weekly series. Engage for Success is a not-for-profit movement and the UK's leading voice on the topic of employee engagement. We're raising awareness and running events through our area networks around the country, and our topic and sector-specific thought and action groups are out there developing research, publishing case studies, and shining a light on great practice. You can visit engageforsuccess.org to learn more, and whilst you're there, why not sign up for our weekly newsletter so you never miss out on any of our great free resources, events, and updates. I'm Andy Gorham, your host for today's show and founder of BizJuicer, an employee engagement and culture change consultancy that helps growing organizations attract, keep, and develop great people. Now then, what if I told you that poor employee engagement isn't really an employee problem? It's a leadership problem. Too often, we hear leaders say things like, well, people just don't care anymore. Or we have too many cynics, too many disengaged employees just collecting a paycheck, and that's all we can have. But what if disengagement isn't about them, but about us? The way we lead, the culture we create, and the standards we set. Today, we're diving deep into this with Dr. Roger Gerard. Roger's a seasoned expert in leadership, process improvement, and workplace transformation. With over 50 years of experience across healthcare, manufacturing, and service industries, Roger has spent his career helping leaders drive real, measurable change. He's the former Chief Learning Officer at ThedaCare, a strategic consultant, and the author of Owning the Room and the soon-to-be-released Lead with Purpose. So, how can leaders turn around disengagement? How do we cull the cynics, the apathetics, and the naysayers without making the problem worse? And what role do we play in shaping engagement, trust, and purpose in our organizations? Well, let's ask Roger. Roger, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thanks, Andy. I'm appreciative that I'm able to be here with you.
Lovely to have you here, my friend. Absolutely lovely to have you here. Well, time is of the essence today, my friend, so let's get straight to it. Why, then, is poor engagement fundamentally a leadership issue rather than an employee issue in your mind?
That's a great first question. It's because it's very expensive. And if business is about generating return for the shareholders, whether that be an entrepreneurial organization or a large systemic organization, the people who own it are in business for a reason. And if the employees of that business are not engaged, they're not going to deliver what the owners or the shareholders or whoever it is are the prime stakeholders. They're not going to be happy. Second, it's an important business issue because disengaged people don't serve customers well. The business is there to provide a product or a service for the people who use that business. And if the staff of that business are not engaged with their energy and their attention, those customers are not going to get what they came to the company for. We've all had the experience of buying something from a business representative who really didn't give a damn. We've had that experience.
Unfortunately, we all have, haven't we?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We know how that feels, and it reflects badly on the business.
Well, I don't think that is an experience many of us haven't had, to use a double negative. But I think this issue that we've got here about leadership, it's a gnarly one, isn't it? It's not a simple solve. And I suspect that many people listening to the show today have probably had to deal with people who are, how shall I put it, not on the bus, Roger. Those people, the cynics, the apathetics and the naysayers, the words I used in the introduction, and frankly, have probably struggled with them and even tried to avoid them. And I think, if I'm honest, in my past, I have been that person, not the cynic, but the person who's gone, oh, I've got to deal with these people again. So in your experience, how do we deal with these groups effectively? What's behind it all?
Yeah, we've all had the experience as leaders of running into these characters, and they seem to be the iconic characters of disengagement. And in order to learn how to deal with them, you first have to understand what's going on underneath the surface of these characters. Cynics, they lack trust. For some reason, they feel like they've been violated, whether in the current organization or in a past organization, or maybe as a child growing up, who knows? But they're cynical in how they live their lives and how they do their work. So if you understand the cynics, then you begin to understand what has to happen in order to breed a more highly engaged person. You have to get beyond that trust issue, and you have to cultivate an environment where people can get along with one another and trust one another's promises.
Hmm.
The apathetics have a different set of dynamics. The apathetics have given up. They've tried to change things. They've tried to improve things. They've tried to make things easier. They've tried to make things better. And for some reason, they've been unsuccessful. And as new leadership comes in and wants to change things further, um, they give up. And the motivation is gone. And what they are missing is something called hope.
Hmm.
They are missing this uh, possibility future that generates a lot of energy among those of us who think we can make change. The third group, the naysayers, they have spent a career organizing the world just the way they want it. They may have been there for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, and now new leadership comes in and declare that they want to make some big changes in the organization to reflect what's going on externally to the organization. The naysayers are going to find every reason in the book not to change their world. Uh, that's security to them. So if you understand that the driver of the naysayers is a sense of security, you have to help them find security in the changes that you want to make.
Mm.
None of this is easy. You said that it's complex. It's very complex. And it requires that leaders are able to lead with different styles with different people. There is no one size fits all. That's a really important part of this whole set of ideas. Different people require different things in their leadership.
Yeah, I think also the lesson there is having to adapt to them instead
Yeah.
of trying to get them to adapt to
Oh,
you.
absolutely. Yeah, they're the ones doing the daily work. They're the ones that show up on Monday morning and hopefully don't leave until Friday afternoon, doing the work that they're there to do. And our job as leaders is to nurture that. And you mentioned the word culture earlier.
Mm.
Our job is to create an environment in which people can satisfy their wants and needs. That's why they're working. And if they can't satisfy their wants and needs, they're either going to retire on the job, which is not a good thing, or they're going to leave. And if you've paid highly for that talent, you're losing something that's very expensive to create.
Yeah, and we have a huge percentage of people in that presenteeism bubble at work. They're neither disengaged or engaged. They're just kind of floating around like dust in the air, really.
Yeah.
Just inhabiting space and not really doing much. Out of those three characters that you've articulated today, Roger, which do you see in your work as the most common or perhaps the most problematic?
I actually have seen them all in
Yeah.
different variations. The cynics are the most troublesome
Mm.
because they hide behind a sense of humor. They hide behind a facade of egotism, and they're contagious as all get out.
Mm. Mm.
When people who are cynical try to bring other people into that same level of cynicism, it's very contagious. I see them as the most troublesome. The apathetics, they've given up on everybody, including the cynics. They just they just don't really want to be bothered, and they have retired on the job. They don't want to be there, but have no plans to leave, and it's really a difficult place for a leader to try to engender hope. But they're more silent in their presence than the
Mm.
cynics are.
Yeah.
The naysayers are troublesome, but if you listen to them, they have their own solutions. Naysayers are probably the easiest to contend with because if you can help them see the security in the changes you're trying to make,
Hmm,
they'll go with you and they'll become advocates over time.
hmm.
So they're the ones I like to deal with first and fastest.
Well, you love a bit of change, Roger. So I think
Oh,
anything that
sure.
anything that promotes the change stuff. And I mean, change is it's a tough topic for most people to get comfortable with. I think humans by dint love a bit of security. We love a bit of certainty, and change often, whilst there could be some great positives behind it, will bring a period, however fleeting, of unknown, and that gets under the skin of these guys, right?
Oh, absolutely. When I'm in session with people, I use the line, everybody knows we need to change around here and everybody else better get started. It's like we don't take it personally. It's somebody else's issue, and that's not how it works. And that starts with leaders. Leaders have to change.
I
Leaders
think
have to start there.
I think you're right. I'm just looking at those three words that you've used as the strategies to take for cynics, apathetics, and naysayers, and they are some pretty big topics there. Trust, hope, and security. I mean, they're not like um, pay. They're not like benefits. These are big human emotion state um, reliant topics.
It's counterintuitive to a lot of people, especially those folks in HR. It's not about paying benefits.
Mm,
You have to be competitive. If you're not
sure.
competitive in your comp, um, then you've got a different problem. You've got a vision problem in your organization, and you want to be a market laggard. Feel free, but you're not going to get the best talent if you make that decision. It's not about paying benefits. And if you get underneath the hood of most of the dysfunction in organizations, the employees will tell you that.
Mm,
The reason they make pay and benefits the rallying cry in union labor relations and in some of the protest movements that you see is because it's the easiest thing to pin down in a measurable way. When people are telling you they're underpaid or they don't have the benefits they need, their real message is you don't value me.
mm.
Professionals want to be valued. They want to be proud of what they're doing. And if you're not paying them competitively, you're sending a very real message about how you value their work.
And if you're not doing these other things, then it's really hard for them to see how they're being valued. They can make a tangible call on the pay, but if you're not increasing pay regularly, well, then you clearly don't value me because there's nothing else kind of going on here. There's a big debate on the whole make it more than a paycheck thing. I put a video out on LinkedIn on the same topic a while ago, and it's very, very interesting the polarity you get in response
Oh, sure.
to that piece.
Absolutely. And this is where leadership has to start reorganizing its sense of their role in their job. A lot of people come into leadership and they think it's their job to motivate people. No, it's not. Leaders, nobody motivates me. I motivate me. When I get up on Monday morning, I decide what I'm going to put my focus on, what my priorities are, and I'll take into account in that process what anybody I see as my leadership um, has. But if I'm a professional, if I'm going to be a contributor to the organization, I'm assuming that I have the wherewithal and the prerogative to set priorities for myself and do those things that matter most. I would say that not only for myself as an executive in my past lives, but also for the nurse on the care unit, for the teacher in the classroom. Professionals come to the job expecting a certain amount of autonomy, a certain amount of self-direction, and they motivate themselves. When leaders think they're motivating, actually what they're doing is manipulating. They're trying to get people to do things they don't want to do
Mm,
naturally. And there's
yeah.
something seriously wrong with that in the culture.
I think that's true. I think it's interesting as well, though, because talking about motivation in your book, I think you talk about the leader's role in reigniting passion and
Yeah.
engagement, right? So, I mean, that sort of almost has this shift from it's the employee's problem to hey, this is my problem, and how do I re-energize a group of people? What what strategies do you advocate for within the book, then, Roger, this role of reigniting passion and engagement? Again, lovely things to say, tough as nails to deliver.
Yeah, the deliverables are actions, and what we'll do is before we can talk about reigniting passion, we have to
Mm,
spend just a moment to talk about why passion deteriorates. Where does it go?
yeah, lovely.
Um, Leaders make mistakes in how they lead people. Those mistakes are fairly straightforward, but we don't see those mistakes because of the paradigms we bring into our work as
Mhm,
leaders. We fail to listen with respect. When employees come and tell us that something is wrong, we don't want to hear it. Or we hear it with a filter, and sometimes we immediately go to a blame and shame. It's somebody else's fault. We have to learn to listen with respect. And
mm,
when we make that mistake, we create a disconnection with the employees. We use blame and shame in our work, and blame and shame is poisonous. When a leader engages in blaming other departments, other leaders, past leaders, uh, other staff for the problems that are occurring in the organization, they're sending a message that everybody's fair game for blame.
mm.
It's contagious and it's poisonous, and it completely poisons the culture of the organization. There will be no trust in that organization after a while. Leaders expect loyalty without giving loyalty. I asked in one organization how often they use layoffs when they have downturns in their work, and roughly every year in that particular employer. Um, what message does that send? If we say in one hand, employees are our most important asset, and then we lay them off when things go south, there's no loyalty there. And you can't expect loyalty if you're unwilling to give loyalty. Over standardization. We bring these professionals in expecting them to do certain things, and they expect to have certain things: autonomy, the ability to practice their profession without interference, et cetera, et cetera. And then we over standardize their work. We tell a teacher, you have to teach this content in this way, and you have to also be a cop in the classroom. You also have to maintain discipline and order. You have to do this, that, and the other thing. And they're handed a script instead of being allowed to design learning and instruction tailored to the individual students that are in the classroom. There's something wrong with that picture if we're over standardizing the work. So bullying and manipulation is probably the last thing on my list of things that leaders do to destroy passion. Nobody gets up on Monday morning saying, I can't wait to get to work and be bullied by my boss. Nobody does that.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, it's frustrating, it's demeaning, and yet it occurs in every workplace almost every day at very subtle levels. I did some work in an organization years ago in which the CEO's famous comments over and over again is, you get paid, don't you? Go do it. And he would do that with a finger pointing in the face of the individual while he was saying those words. Um, I actually videotaped him doing that on one
Oh, wow.
occasion and
Gosh.
showed it back to him and his senior team, and we talked about that for a while.
And was he aware of his behavior?
He was totally unaware he was doing that.
Yeah.
But these are all things that burn passion out.
Yeah.
They burn passion out. And if you want to really reverse that, there are certain things you have to do. And it goes back to why they're burning up.
Mm,
You have to enable professionals to do the right thing within the context of the professions that they have studied for and learned over the years. You have to give them that autonomy to do the right thing. Monitor, yes, make sure the right thing is going on. And if it's not, find out why and help them do the right thing. But be there to help them, not to criticize them and punish them. Uh, Professionals expect to be an environment of safety. Keep them safe. And that's both physical and mental and psychological. You keep them from being bullied by others. Um, I've watched bullying take place across different departmental units. And why are you doing that? I interviewed one group of nurses and wondering why the turnover rate was so high for entry level nurses coming into the hospital.
Hmm.
And they said, we eat our young. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? Why would you even say something like that? Clearly, there was bullying going on with regard to the old timers versus the new ones coming in. Professionals expect to be able to use judgment. They've been trained. And a lot of times they're managed by people who don't share the same profession. And yet those managers seem to want to micromanage those professionals. And the professionals know it's not right. It's not correct. Why would you go there? But it happens, and it happens in every complex organization. Professionals expect to be involved in the decisions that affect them. Um, they're professionals. Some of these folks are bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorates, and they expect to be engaged in those things that affect them deeply. And if they're not, if they're just treated like pawns on a chessboard, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel good to professionals. They will go elsewhere where they can be valued. Um, they expect leadership to be present. This is really a big deal.
Mm.
So many leaders think it's their job to lead from their offices. And if they're going to talk with people, the people are going to have to come to their office to talk. I'm a big advocate of going to the unit floor. I'm a big advocate of spending time where the work is being done every day. In the organizations I've worked with, I've encouraged the leaders to close their office door and every day for at least 2 hours, go somewhere in the organization and watch what's being done so that you understand it. Don't be there to fix problems. Don't be there to give advice. Don't be there to criticize or evaluate. Go there to understand what's being done and how it's being done.
Mm.
Because you cannot be an effective leader unless you understand the work that's being done.
Yeah, I think there's also that piece around um, being present, sure, but not having to have all the answers, right? Which comes back to your piece about involvement and all that kind of stuff. There's a big error, I think, that's made when you take or when some take a leadership position, that all of a sudden they feel like they have to have it all down. They have to have all the solutions to everything, and then actually what they're doing is just orchestrating the solution. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's not right.
It's not right. I had a group of 12 execs in a retreat. I was doing a 1 week retreat, and I sent them all on a field trip one afternoon to their units, and I gave them clear instructions. Your job is to go there and observe. Stand in a corner somewhere and just watch what's going on for an hour. Come back and tell me what you found. Well, they came back and they were proud as peacocks. They saw problems and they immediately issued orders to fix those problems. They saw missing supplies. They saw people doing things out of the ordinary. They saw things that they wanted to fix right now. And so they did. And so as they're making the reports, I'm listening to all this and I told them they all failed. They flunked the test. Nobody asked them to go fix problems. I asked them to go understand what was going on in the units.
Subtle difference, Roger. Subtle
Yeah.
difference.
And the most important part of that story is they were making decisions that they should have enabled the staff to make.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it for them.
And that in itself sends a whole load of trust signals and what have you as well, right? By letting people have agency and stand by their decisions. I think just maybe incorrectly connecting, but connecting your next book, right, with the leading with purpose. There's something in here that, I mean, I'm with you. I think people genuinely want to be seen, heard, and shown that they add value. And some of that can really come from being connected to a clear purpose in the work. And so, from your experience, how does that all come together? Where's the
Yeah,
leader's role in that?
yeah. I did some work with one client organization in which I spent some time with the executive team and three different subgroups of the executive team, all senior executives throughout the system. And I asked every group I was interviewing, tell me about your vision, your mission, and your core values of the organization. And what I found was astounding. Nobody could personally articulate the mission, the vision, or the values of the organization
Wow.
clearly.
Mm.
They had stuff hanging on the wall.
Oh yeah,
I read it
always.
all, but nobody could tell me without looking at the wall what that stuff was.
Yeah.
That spoke volumes to me. Then I asked them where that stuff came from, and it had to do with a small group of people that were convened, probably 12 or 15 people, 10 years earlier. So I asked a couple of questions. I said, are those 10 people still in the organization? And the answer was, some of them are, yeah. So I called them all together as a group, put them in the room, and I said, tell me what the mission, vision, and values of the organization are. And they could tell me.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a group of people I could bounce off of and say, well, why is it that your current leadership can't tell me this?
Hmm.
And why is it that nobody at the staff level can tell me this? Well, we had a couple of CEOs in the last 3 years that shifted gears on us. I said, what do you mean? Well, the core values were rewritten by another small group of people, and the CEO turned it into a bunch of Boy Scout promises.
Oh right. Gosh.
And he sent it out to everybody and made him sign a document that was framed around, I promise to do this, I promise to do that, I promise to do the other thing. He totally destroyed the voluntary cultural norms of a professional community, totally destroyed it in that act. Um, the cynicism in that organization was very, very high.
I can only imagine, but I even imagine that CEO probably came with the best of intention in trying to
Yes.
make something positive happen, but the end result not really what they set
No,
out to
because he
do.
made himself the solution.
Yeah.
You have to make the staff the solution. And so what I did is I then created a way for the staff to be the heroes of the organization. And we did focus groups in 21 different sites, brought together people in those sites around the core values of the organization first. If you lived in a perfect organization, what would the core values be? And knowing what you're here to do in this organization, what's your vision for the future? How can this become the best organization in its service area? And finally, what is your core mission? Are
Mm.
there several? Is there one? What's the core mission? And I walked them through the ladder from the bottom to the top, which when we assembled everything, the executives were able to go back to the staff and say, this is our new mission, vision, and values. And it has the fingerprints of over 1,000 people on it.
Which is incredibly powerful, right? Incredibly powerful.
Yes.
Roger, before I let you go, if anybody's listening right now and they're thinking, look, I've got an engagement problem and don't even know where to start, what's the first thing that they could do tomorrow, my friend? What is that?
Well, it's five things. It's not one. I'm gonna tell you how I ended Lead with Purpose and how I ended Owning the Room, both books. Um, every leader, whether you're an executive, a manager, a supervisor, a director, and I don't care what your job title is, a board member, you got to make promises. There are five promises I want you to make, and then there are two actions I want you to take.
Okay.
The five promises: I will listen to you with respect, and I'll take your input seriously. And if I disagree with you, I'll tell you why. That's a promise.
Yep.
You got to keep that promise. That is not a light promise. People need to be heard. Promise number two: I will help you learn and grow as a professional. I want you to practice your profession at the top of your profession. I will help you learn and grow. Every professional knows that their profession is a practice. Practice means over time. And so they have to continue learning. They want their leadership to help them. Third promise, I will help you be wildly successful. That means I'm going to give you the resources you need. I'm going to give you the time you need. I'm going to give you the autonomy you need. I'm going to give you the wherewithal you need to be successful in the practice of your profession. Because if you're successful in your profession, our customers are going to be well cared for. Fourth promise, I'll make sure you're compensated competitively. You're not going to have to be striving to make what your colleagues in other organizations are making. I'm going to compensate you competitively. And we'll show you the data. We'll show you the numbers. And oh, by the way, that doesn't mean 50% comp ratio. It means closer to 60% comp ratio because the data is always a year old. Promise number 5, I'll have your back when things go wrong. Things are going to go wrong. We're going to make mistakes. Things aren't going to be as we predicted, but I'll have your back. We're not going to allow blame and shame in this organization. If you make those 5 promises, you will create a culture over time. And I'm talking many months and maybe a couple of years. You will create a culture over time where people begin to trust. They begin to contribute. They begin to speak freely. They begin to help you because they want to, not because you want them to. And if while you make those promises, you spend those months or years going and seeing and then acting on what you see, go and see, go and do. Those are the 2 actions. You will create a culture where not only are you making and keeping your promises, but you are acting in the best interest of the organization, the customer, and the staff doing the daily work. That is contagious and it's powerful as any leader. But
Roger, that's brilliant, mate. That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Time has run away with us, but I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate sharing all these insights, and I wish you the very best of luck with this book. Before I let you go, where can people find out a little bit more about you and maybe get hold of the book?
Go to my website, rogergerard.com, and at that website, you'll find links to the books. You'll find my blogs that I put on LinkedIn. You'll find some of the other things about me and the work that I'm doing.
Brilliant. Well, look, that is just about all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us, Roger. And listen, everybody, don't forget to visit engageforsuccess.org to check out the show notes and all our fab free engagement resources. And while you're there, we just download some of the other great shows that we've had as well, and from all of the massive archive that we've got there at your complete leisure. We will be back again at the same time next week. I'm Andy Gorham, and thanks for listening to Engage for Success Radio.
Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.
Thank you, sir.